Uh, Welcome to our class in Iyun. As we said, we're going to give a little bit of an extensive introduction before we actually jump into the topic itself. But, and again, as we just learned in the Ramchal, this talk that I'm giving is aimed at those people who have little or no learning experience and those people that have more learning experience. And of course, those that have more learning experience will probably think it's too simplistic, and those that have none may think it's a little too advanced, but we're trying to make a compromise. What I wanted to do is start off with an interesting question, which was, the Torah is a limited amount of words. If you count up the letters, it's 304,840 letters, okay? Divide that by 5 and you'll get how many words, approximately. Divide that by 250, you'll get how many pages. A very small book, really. Not that small, I think it's around 250 pages, 200 pages, typewritten pages. But it's, and now we said that Kodesh Baruch Hu looked into the Torah, created the world. And the question is, how could that finite amount of material expand into a universe of information coming from the Kodesh Baruch Hu? How does it work? So we explain that there's many ways that information is encoded in the text of Torah, whether it be through visual methods. We said here that some of the lines of the Torah don't extend to the end. Some of the lines of the Torah do extend. There's white space to the end, which are paragraphs. And then we said that there's this whole audio way that the information is communicated, lines or stops, and expressions made. And we said there's even visual indicators of the Torah, like the letter Pei has to have within inside it the letter Bet, or the words, the letter Samech is the letter of strength, equals, it has a numerical value of 60, which is said in Shir Sharim, that 60 men encircled the bed of Shlomo, which means that there's also a mathematical aspect to the Torah. Then we said that Rabbi Akiva even could dash these little crowns on the top of the Torah, which is another visual method, or the little dots on the top when you look at the Sefer Torah itself to convey messages. Then we said the way that we're most interested in communicating information, although all that information is communicated in various different aspects, is what we called the logical way of compacting or compressing information. For instance, we said Yom HaShabbos, it says, Hashem says, Lo taseh kol malacha. You shouldn't do any malacha. So that's a kolel word, all malacha. It's a categorical word which includes 39 different types of malacha. So that one physical term, kol malacha, really can be opened up and decompressed into a whole series of 39 different malachas. Or we said, this is what you can eat in the Torah. This is what the animals you can eat, and we're medayek that, of course, the other ones you can't eat. That's another way of communicating information to flesh and blood. And we said there's things that there's basic logical frameworks, which we went through in Sefer Gayom, basic logical. And then there's the ones that the Torah have special rules, which are encoded into the language of Halacha Moshe Sinai. We said, like the Gezerah Shava, for instance, and we brought an example how that encoding works in the case of spreading one din throughout 24 different cases through this chart. Okay. That's a horizontal view of the Torah. Then we said there's a vertical view of the Torah, that the Torah itself has 4 different levels, Peshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod, going from the simple to the esoteric. Now, our focus is going to be on Peshat. What does Peshat mean? Our aim is to learn what Kodesh Baruch Hu wants from us. So we're going to take these 613 mitzvahs, and with the help of the Chumash and the Torah Sheba'al Peh, which is Mishnah, Gemara, and then the Meforshim, etc., we're going to now decompress all this information and understand specifically on what arm our tefillin is supposed to be, what color the tefillin is supposed to be, can there be an imposition between the straps and one's hand, or by wearing your watch or not, what time that we're going to use the tefillin. We're going to use all the 24 Havchanot of the Ramchal. And we're going to answer all the questions of exactly how you, in 2012, will do the same mitzvah as Moshe Rabbeinu and Klal Yisrael 3,000 years ago. Okay, and that's our aim, to find out what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from us in a specific action called a mitzvah. So we said the way the information is decompressed is we always start with the Chumash. The two basic boxes we said is what's written, that text we said, 28,000 I think the letters over there. That's what's written physically, and then there's a whole system of expanding those words into every fine detail, which is put together in what's called Torah Shebaal Peh. And those are the two methods that those are the two elements that we have to handle. Torah Shebechtav, what's written, and Torah Shebaal Peh, the oral explanations and systems that are handed down, which open up the text itself. So we stand here at the end of the line in today, 2012, and we have to now take a trip back in time, so to speak, all the way to Har Sinai. So there's two ways to enter. You can go from the back to the front or from the front to the back. What do I mean? You could start with the a shiur that you hear, a class that you hear with a Rosh Yeshiva, and have him trace it all the way back, or have him go back as far as he wants. He may not go all the way back to the beginning. Or you can start the other way. You could start from a line in the Chumash and see it develop. What I would like to do with you, as I said, our aim is to take one little halacha happens to be in Baba Kama, and to trace it and to watch it open up from the source itself all the way through Torah Shebaal Peh to our present time, and to see that there's one integrated package, and everybody is just opening up the details, which is all compressed and included in those few words in the Torah, which say, Meitiv Sadeu and Meitiv Karmei Shalom. You should pay the best of your field and the best of your vineyard, best of your field. That's going to be our aim. So, again, I explained here the levels that we're going to go through. There's the Torah, there's the Mishnah, it was written 300 in the Common Era, then around 100 years later the Gemara was formulated. Then we have the area of the Gaonim, which basically did a lot of work in definitions, and then there's the Rishonim in around the 1100s. The Poskim follow the Rishonim. The Tur, his father's the Rosh, was a Rishon, and of course the Shulchan Aruch afterwards, and then we get to the people who write on the Shulchan Aruch, and finally the later Achronim and the present-day Rosh Yeshiva. So that's what we're going to look at. I'll send this to you. I'd like to read all the details. Okay. Here I explain the first level. Now, the Torah is broken up into 5 sections. When you talk about order, which is so essential in a discussion with the Ramchal, there's many ways to order information, and it depends upon my goal. If I'm interested in finding out in making suits, I may have to order people according to their height. If I'm interested in a bank, I may have to order people in terms of their economic status. If I'm interested in people's health, I'll have to order them in terms of their physical prowess. If I'm interested in someone running in the Olympics, I'll have to look at their physical body. So there's many different aspects when it comes to ordering information. The Torah, when it orders its information, starts in a timeline basis. It starts with the creation of the world in Bereshis, goes up to present-day entrance into Shemos, which is really the Egyptian experience, and leaving receiving the Torah, leaving Egypt and receiving the Torah, Vayikra, given all the laws of the temple, the Midbar, what happens in the desert before we get into Eretz Israel, and the Chitum, which is the Varim, which is Moshe Rabbeinu's last speech to the people before he leaves the scene and Yeshua takes the people into Eretz Israel. So basically it's run on a timeline basis. Rashi's first question in the Chumash is what? He holds that this order is not appropriate. He says the order should have started with the first mitzvah that we got. Very interesting.
Well, because that's the purpose
he says the goal of the Torah is to...
It's mitzvahs.
Exactly, the purpose is mitzvahs, not history. But that's what he says. And then he gives his teretz why it went this way, an interesting teretz, but that's what he says. But anyway, I just wanted to bring up that when we're talking, a very important thing is to understand how information is ordered. That gives a very important message. Okay, and the way the Chumash is ordered in reality is on a timeline basis. Now, we ask the question why, that's a further question. When it comes to the Mishnah, the Mishnah is organized according to, before I get to the Mishnah. Here I took the Mishpatim, okay? And what I did was I took the Chumash, here's the Chumash, here's the Torah, green Chumash, right? Broken down to its 5 books, right? And we're going to see now what I mean about decompressing information. We just said there's the Chumash, which is the categorical name of all the 5 books. Each one of the 5 books, we said, go through a, not exclusive, but more or less a timeline, starting from the creation of the world to the Egyptian experience and getting out of Egypt, and the exposition of, as we said, the laws of the Levim, Kohanim, and then the Chitum. Whoops, I see this out of place here. But Midbar before Devarim. Okay, anyway, then each book itself is divided into what we call Parshiot. Okay? Now, and each parsha is divided into its subsections. So if we take the parsha of Mishpatim, which is what we're going to be dealing with, we see that it's divided into information. Now, various steps of information, no-says, various subject matter. Now, one of the things that we will be doing is we'll be using what I call visual logic, which is basically to take the text digitally, take a text. Now we live in the computer world, we can get the text of the Chumash, we can get the text anything we want, and to use 2 keys on the keyboard, one called the enter and one called the tab. The enter key would be anytime a statement ends, we want to put a enter. Then the next statement is either going to be related to the one before, in which case we'll have to put a tab in if it's related, or it's a new idea, so it'll come back to the beginning line. That's my basic setup of what I call visual logic. So we're going to do that with the Chumash too. We take this parsha of Mishpatim and we'll divide it into its logical components, and we'll see what is the sequence of ideas. So here in Mishpatim we have the laws of Eved Ivri, a Hebrew slave, the laws of damages when a man hits another man, b'shogeg and b'mezid, the laws of hitting chas v'shalom one's father and mother, or to curse the father and mother, and then the laws of Geneva. That's one unit. Now we have here the laws of when a man murders another person. Excuse me, makish v'lomet, he doesn't murder him. Here he actually did murder him. Makish umit. And this is not murder, but it's going to have the same principle. Then we have, after we get to laws that have capital punishment, now we're going to have laws of where he doesn't murder him, but he injures him. And so we have Maka Ish velo mace, we have Maka Eved, in other words, a Jew hitting another Jew, a Jew hitting an Eved, a Jew hitting an Eved and having him die, and a Jew damaging his Eved and having his tooth and eye fall out and getting freed. And then a man who hits a woman and she miscarries. Okay, now, after we define these things, we have to understand what is the sequence and relationship of the ideas. Okay, but first now, I'm only trying to show how ideas start from a general principle, like the Chumash, broken down to the different books. The different books are broken down into different parshiyos, and the different parshiyos are broken down into different topics. Here's the topic we're going to be speaking about, which is the topic of items, not man doing damage per se, although that'll be also an interesting discussion whether our first mission talks about man or not. But here the Torah talks about an animal goring another man and him dying, an animal goring another animal and it dying, and an animal walking on over the produce of another man's field and either eating it or destroying it by walking over it. Then the Torah continues with the topic of an animal falling into a pit, and a person stealing a animal, and finally destroying someone's property through fire. Okay. In the end of Parsha Mishpatim, we have the concept of Shomrim. Now, Shomrim also will be in our Gemara because the Shomer, through his negligence, is going to be damaging other people's property by not watching it properly. So we have the Shomer of Kalim, the Shomer of animals, and the person who borrows, and then we have finished the Parsha off the person who entices another woman and damages her ability to get married. Okay, so what we're going to do is involve ourselves in this little section, and actually when we look at the Mishnah, we're going to say, well, what did the Mishnah do that the Chumash didn't do? Okay, because the Mishnah has to now of course have a Chiddush, or else it's just saying what the Chumash says. So when it comes to the Mishnah's order is not time-based at all, but it's content-based. Okay, the laws of damages happen to be located here. There's another place where it's located later on. The Mishnah now will organize all the Torah in terms of topic, content. So let's look at what that does. Okay. Just have a few more minutes here. The Mishnah breaks down the Chumash, as we said, into 6 areas of content. The first one, the laws of agricultural laws. The second one, all the holidays. The third, laws pertaining to women. The fourth, laws of damages. The fifth, the laws of the temple, and the final ones, the laws of Tahara and Tumah, like impurity, you need them. Now again, we see this concept of klal and prat, the concept how information has to be opened from its general rule into all its particulars. So from these 6 categories, which we call Zman Nakatos, the Rosh Tevas, each one of them are now broken down into what we call Mesechtavot, or further subcategories. So, for instance, Nezikin, we have 3 gates, Baba Kama, Baba Matzi, and Baba Basra, which is what we call civil law of damages and property rights, etc. Then we have Sanhedrin, the laws of courts. And then the courts have to have punishments. We have matzkos, and then we have the courts have to also have oaths, shvuos, and have testimony, edios, and then we have certain punishments that are capital punishments like avodah zarah, and we have avos, which is interesting why it's put there, but it's put there.
Yeah, it's spoken about at the beginning. Yeah,
society. Yeah, definitely, especially because it says Torah, Moshe Kippur Torah Sinai, so that should actually have been the first one. Okay, but that's in the, and then they say Chasidus is Nezikin. I mean, there's a lot of answers for that, and then Horus. Okay, in every Masechta, it's further broken down into units. If we go here in Baba Kama, we see that the first unit talks about the general categories of damages, the shoreboard, the mav, and the hever. Then it goes on to talk about specifically each one of those 4. We have Ketzad HaRegel, talking about when the animal damages by walking and trampling on things, Hamaniach, which is the boar, people putting down objects, then the various halachas of shore, or shore that damages for Shvarim, etc. And after it talks about damage, it talks about shomrim, and a man doing the damage with a chovel, and then theft. Okay, now of course we have to understand, and that's what the Rambam and the Meforshim talk about, why is this order the order? But for our presentation here, we're only trying to show how information has to be unzipped, decoded, decompressed, and this is how it's done. Now, each Masechet then will have its topics that it talks about, usually running according to the again, content. So in Arba Avos Nezikin, you have first the definition of the 4 types of Nezikin, then how damages are evaluated, the difference between toms and muads, all different in between those different types of animals, and the dinay of shmirah of those animals. Now, in Avos, it's further broken down into what we call sugiyas. Okay. Now, the sugiyas are a commentary on the Mishnayos in those particular sections. So, the topics, for instance, in Arba Avos, will talk about what, since the word avos was used with toldos, and what are the avos and the toldos? Okay, the second topic we'll talk about the mav and the hever, which is the shoreboard, mav and the hever, the last 2. I just mentioned the Mishnah. Then the Mishnah said lower higher is there, lower shok higher mav, with the 3rd statement. So then we'll have a whole sugya on that. So basically, we're going line by line through the Mishnah, and we're going to now expose more and more information that was encoded in the original text. Now remember, the way that the Torah and the Torah Shabbat has done is that the Chachamim are able to encode loads of information in a few words, and they hand us the tools to decode that information. So that's what we're about, and that's what we want to do, and that's what we want to demonstrate. Okay, it's those tools that allows us gives us the process to open up the highly compressed text and to expand it into its details. So over here, when Mav and Beheber, Okay, we discussed, wait a minute, our Mishnah says that there's 4 Avos Nezikin, and we see that there's a bright Tot that say no, that there's much more than that. There's 13, okay, and really Tanit Reichia says 24, so we have to now give a whole analysis to discover what the groupings, why the groupings are the groupings, and then that will explain to us the various ways of organizing the types of damage. And finally, so it says here, we said Rebbe Chia, Rebbe Oshia told us say in Ma'inihu. So we said like this in the Mishnah. We said we can understand that the Shor, Bor, Mav, and the Heber have derivative cases. Those are called Toldos. But there's a lot of cases of both Rav Chia and Rav Oshia, like Onus and Mafata, that is the rape, for instance, that has nothing to do, that has no Toldos, has no derivatives. So then why do they use the term when they say that there's either 13 or 24? Why do they also use the term Avos? And we have a rather surprising answer. Because they all share the same din as the Avos. That's why they use those terms. And finally, the Gemara proves through that diagram which you mentioned before that all the 24 different types of Nezikin have the same din of having to pay with the best of the land. Okay, so we're going to stop here and pick it up at the end. And we're going to now just give it very, although it's a Torah is what it is. It's very dense, very deep. But we're just going to try to skim over the basic, broad outline of the thing, of the system, and just to demonstrate that there's a system here. It has to be grasped. Once we understand the system, then we also have to understand the content and relationship to the system, and then we can start or decompressing or unzipping or reconstituting the message that's so tightly compacted in these words. Okay, so we'll stop here.
Okay.
And, we wish you a great simcha tonight, and the couple should have mamash built by Nema B'Yisrael, and you should only see nachas from them and all your children. And as I said, this is just an introduction. When it comes to real hands-on things, we're going to slow down because I'm not going to be, quote-unquote, as the Ramchal just got through lecturing to a group, I'm going to be working with you to see in real time how to open up a message that's so tightly compressed. That's the aim. Okay?
Next week, I'm scheduled to be at Sheva Brachas in Chicago on Tuesday night. I'm flying back on Wednesday. So
you may be in the air?
Yeah, something like that. Either in the air or on the way to the airport.
So you know what? Give me a heads up of what we could do. If we can't do it, we can't. If we want to move it to a different time, we can move it to a different time.
Right. Maybe we'd find a different time.
A day after, day before, right. Whatever you'd like. And
maybe the day before, maybe Tuesday.
Ellie, you're right. And
so I'll be in touch by email on Sunday or Monday. I'll be in touch by email Sunday and Monday. I'll let you know what makes sense.
Great, fantastic. Great. Okay, have a wonderful simcha and a wonderful week. And next week, maybe Mashiach will come. We'll have a class by him.
Okay. Let's hope. Okay, take care.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.